Good evening, everybody. How are y'all doing out here today? Great. Welcome to our Inspire series, the first of its kind opportunity to connect with our slug community and hear from some of our most interesting faculty at UC Santa Cruz. What a joy to be here tonight with alumni, with parents, and friends of the university and across our campus community. We are honored to host all of you here tonight. My name is John Pine. I'm the Assistant Vice Chancellor for Alumni Engagement, and it is my pleasure to welcome you. The UC Santa Cruz Alumni Association is over 150,000 strong, with 20,000 right here in the greater Los Angeles area. We host a number of programs here in Los Angeles, across the country, across the globe, and of course, right back at Santa Cruz. So I hope you join us and stay connected. Keep in touch. I'd love to see you all at future events that we have all over the place. So before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to first introduce you to some of our campus and volunteer leadership who joined us tonight. So as I say your name, could you please stand so everyone can see you? Chancellor Larive, who you'll hear from very soon. Mark de los Reyes Davis, the Vice Chancellor of University Advancement and President of the UC Santa Cruz Foundation. And Michelle Whittingham, AVC of Enrollment Management, is just snuck in, so I'm going to call her out. She's in the back. There's Michelle. Members of the UC Santa Cruz Board of Trustees, our current chair, Linda Peterson. Immediate past chair, Richard Moss. If I saw him, okay. Janet Buck. Janet. Panda Kroll. There's Panda. And her husband, Kevin Voken, who is on our alumni council. Kevin. So for everybody here, I encourage you to introduce yourself to one of these folks and maybe let them encourage you to become more involved with us and the future of UC Santa Cruz. So speaking of the future of UC Santa Cruz, I've never been more excited to be part of this university. So I'm going to have you pull our screen down because we're going to show you a video here in a second. Our newest strategic plan, completed just under a year ago, has set us on a more focused path as a global research institution leading at the intersection of innovation and social justice. So I invite you all to let's watch a very short video to learn a little bit more about that plan.
UC Santa Cruz is on an incredible trajectory. For nearly 6 decades, the innovative research and creative scholarship done on our campus has expanded and challenged how we understand the world. We are charting a course that builds on our long-standing strengths, and we're identifying ways we can achieve even more. Our new strategic plan, Leading the Change, will guide our work for the next decade. This shared vision builds on 5 core themes. We will provide more hands-on learning opportunities for undergraduate students while expanding offerings for elective courses in the colleges and divisions. We will pursue new programs that support graduate student success, their professional development, and career goals. We will grow our impact by enabling more interdisciplinary collaborations by strengthening our research infrastructure. We will work to advance an inclusive and supportive environment by creating a campus culture rooted in diversity, equity, and inclusion, improving our hiring practices, and fostering a sense of belonging. We will work intentionally to address the impacts of climate change and plot a course to decarbonize our campus while continuing to carefully steward our land and water resources. We see an even better future ahead with the intentional and dedicated work of everyone in our campus community. That vision will become our reality. Join us on this exciting journey. Learn more at strategicplan.ucsc.edu.
I don't know about you, but whenever I see those videos of campus, it makes me just want to go hug a redwood, right? Pretty exciting. Okay, now it is my absolute great honor that I have the opportunity to introduce UC Santa Cruz Chancellor Cindy Larive. Chancellor Larive is a first-generation college graduate, and a common thread throughout her career has been a commitment to student success, inclusion, and equity. At UC Santa Cruz, she has prioritized improving retention and graduation rates and eliminating equity gaps for students from groups traditionally underrepresented in higher education. Chancellor Larive is an accomplished bioanalytical chemist and has written extensively on active and experiential learning and mentoring. She has encouraged the participation and success of women and other underrepresented groups in STEM and has received campus and national awards for her teaching, research, and leadership. It is my great honor to introduce Chancellor Larive.
Well, thank you, John. Good evening, everyone. Oh, you can do better than that. Good evening. Oh, thank you. I feel better. It's so exciting to be here tonight in Los Angeles and see so many smiling faces, some I know and some I hope to meet during dessert. Thank you for being supporters of UC Santa Cruz. Our network of alumni, parents, and friends is already strong, but it's growing even stronger. And I appreciate your connections to our campus and being vocal advocates for UC Santa Cruz and for the UC system. UC Santa Cruz continues on a remarkable trajectory. I love that video. It gives me chills every time. We have a track record of groundbreaking multidisciplinary research, and we have distinguished scholarship and also creative activities in the arts and in the humanities. Beyond that, we're innovative in ways that are distinctly UC Santa Cruz. Our faculty make an impact not just by advancing their fields, they help us imagine what the world can be. They view their research through the lens of creating a more just, inclusive, and equitable world. That's what makes our university unique. At UC Santa Cruz, we have a kind of a big tent vision of human and global community health. You're going to hear about some of that tonight, but faculty from across our divisions do research and they teach about the social, political, cultural, scientific, and economic determinants of health and health policy. Our faculty study how the forces intersect with biological and environmental influences, and that intersection often creates uneven patterns of disease and well-being in communities. They go deep into the science and into the social science. This Inspire series was born out of a desire to kind of pull back the curtain on the work that unfolds on our campus. I ask all of you, when was the last time you felt inspired? When was the last time you learned something new? When you pushed back the boundaries of your understanding of really complex issues that the world faces? That's what our faculty and students do every single day. Tonight's panel discussion with three outstanding faculty will give you a taste of just how invigorating this mind-expanding experience can be. And now it's my pleasure to introduce our panelists. Grant Hartzog, who is professor of molecular cell and developmental biology, and Grant is co-director of UC Santa Cruz's Global and Community Health Program. James Doucet Battle is professor of sociology and co-director of the UC Santa Cruz Science and Justice Research Center. And Karen Miga is assistant professor of biomolecular engineering and associate director of the human pangenomics at the UC Santa Cruz Genomics Institute. Can you hear me? Yeah. Perfect. So I've got some questions I'm going to ask, and maybe we'll start at different places in the lineup here. So Karen, maybe you could start us with this first question.
Okay.
Because each of you work in discrete areas of global and community health, take a very different perspective as you intersect that. So can you give us your elevator pitch describing your research? Maybe 30 seconds that gets to the heart of your work.
Great. I hope someone out there can time me. When I started my research, it was kind of the dawn of genomics in the sense the human genome was first being released. And that fundamentally shifted the way that we do science. It changed the way we think about basic science, clinical genetics and genomics, and also about human histories. My elevator pitch, of course, is that there's a problem. The problem is that this reference is 2 decades old, and no one in the audience has a phone, a computer, or anything really that's technology-driven that's that old. And this old technology tool has problems. It's incomplete. We have an incomplete gene catalog. It's got errors or problems that we know are incorrect, so you can't really study that particular region. And I would say its fundamental flaw is that it represents only one instance of a human genome. And so the solution here, of course, is understanding that by advancing technology and building not one human genome, but hundreds, if not thousands, of complete maps that are highly accurate across the human globe is really going to give us a new human genome. It's going to reboot the way we do science. It's going to have ripple effects around the world, and that's really what's happening at Santa Cruz. I'm the leadership team of our production center, our genome center at Santa Cruz, where we're leading something called a pan-genome project. And what we're doing is we're trying to reframe the way that scientists operate, and it will change the way that people use tools, the way they study, differences between genomes that could help us better understand disease and lead to new therapeutics. And how it leads to this is my final global component of my pitch, is that we are a global product. So what we're trying to do now is Santa Cruz is on the global scene. I travel all around the world. We were just talking about it with colleagues, thinking about how can we start to think about scientific technology and genomes, not at the scale of one university or a UC-based university, but how do we bring this to benefit global communities around the world and ensure that some of the discoveries we're making also benefit communities around the world. Was that 30 seconds?
Yeah. James, do you want to tell us about your research?
Happy to. I'm a medical anthropologist by training, so I have one foot in the social sciences and another foot in the biological sciences. And my work initially, and I think currently and ongoing, will tackle the problem of cardiometabolic illnesses, particularly type 2 diabetes. And I guess there's a new one that they call type 3. Alzheimer's disease, which we are all familiar with. And I'm really concerned about the ways in which type 2 diabetes has become not only epidemic but pandemic and arguably endemic. My research began in 2008 looking at African descent populations who have type 2 diabetes. I wanted to look at the ways in which they interacted with the technology, the glucometer, the hemoglobin A1C test, and the biomedical message about how they could live a healthier life. But in 2011, something changed, and that was the price of sequencing a genome. It dropped precipitously, and all of a sudden my research shifted from diagnosis to risk. And I began to see the ways in which risk not only created new, hopefully actionable forms of patient behavior and medical prescription, but also the ways in which risk created new markets, pharmaceutically and otherwise. Now, in this exploration, in this swirl of ever-changing events, as an anthropologist, I found myself dealing with a problem, and that was the problem of race. People who were doing research in diabetes risk were having problems finding populations that were diverse enough to prove significance and to convince journals and other outlets that their work was credible. So people began to outsource their risk prediction work to other countries. And what I found was that one particular group of people who were working on a risk prediction test or algorithm had outsourced their work to Mauritius. So I began to take a look at the ways in which sugar plays not only a historical, but also a metaphorical role in the ways in which we talk about type 2 diabetes. But here's another problem, and that was the problem of race. As an anthropologist, we maintain that there's no biological location for race, that it's a socio-political construct. With the sequencing of the human genome and the cost reduction in its sequencing, we had a problem, and that was how to move beyond race to ancestry. Before race, pre-race, this question of ancestry. And then in doing that, how do we locate risk further, further beyond physiological time to ancestral time? So in thinking through these things, I wrote a book, Sweetness in the Blood, Race, Risk, and Type 2 Diabetes. And through my ongoing work, I've begun to collaborate more with Karen Miga. I've worked with Grant in the hiring committee for the Global and Community Health program, which I am an affiliate faculty member. And I'm continually working with undergraduates and other students who are interested in the same question. Because as you know, many of our students at UC Santa Cruz come from populations that are severely affected by type 2 diabetes and cardiometabolic disorders. And they're extremely interested, curious, and dedicated to conducting research that will help them better understand not only the illnesses, but the larger picture, the larger milieu in which they and their families live. Thank you.
Grant?
So I study yeast, and that seems kind of boring compared to these guys. But why do I study yeast? So I'm interested in gene transcription, how genes turn on and off. And long before the human genome was sequenced, the genome of Saccharomyces cerevisiae, the yeast that we make beer, bread, and wine with, that was sequenced. And that enabled us then to study every gene in the yeast genome, and it's a simple organism. It grows fast. Nobody cares if you kill a yeast cell. And we could manipulate the genome the way now people are going to be able to do with CRISPR, that I'm sure most of you have heard of. So the other important thing that became apparent as more genomes became sequenced is the deep connections and relationships between organisms across the entire scale of life on this planet. So the genes I study in yeast all have analogs in humans, with one exception. Every gene I study in yeast, the human analog is associated with particular disease states, diseases like HIV, a wide variety of cancers, developmental disorders, and so on. So the yeast is a great model system for rapidly doing studies that have connections to human disease, and hopefully then will engage people working on larger organisms like us to continue those studies on. And I guess the deeper thing, if you want the buzzword for what I work on, most of what I do now connects to a field known as epigenetics. That is the study of how our lived experiences can cause heritable changes that don't reside within our DNA sequence, but likely within proteins that associate with our DNA or chemical modifications of our DNA sequences.
Yeah, very interesting all. So at UC Santa Cruz, we think about global and community health in this multidisciplinary way. And I think, James, you really help me understand how you approach that as a medical anthropologist, talking about having one foot kind of in each area. What do you think that makes UC Santa Cruz unique in the way we approach global and community health?
The openness to conduct multidisciplinary work across divisions is something that I really, really value at UC Santa Cruz. In my graduate program, It was a great place to be a graduate student. Sometimes they say if you understand disorder and dysfunction perfectly, you understand function entirely. And one thing that happened for me is I came to a campus where colleagues were genuinely interested in questions, the questions that were being asked. It didn't matter what department you were from or what language you used. There was a commitment, there was an intention, there was a dedication to understanding and working together and working through those questions. And that's something that has continued unabatedly since I joined the campus. So as a medical anthropologist, I've been able to work with people in STEM, on Science Hill, and in the social sciences in ways that continue to astound me. And I think that's something that keeps me inspired, keeps me excited, and keeps me going. Because I understand that I have colleagues in other places that don't quite have that luxury, don't quite have that privilege, and it's just a special place to work, it's a special place to think, and it's a special place to innovate.
Oh, I think so too. But Karen, you're on the genomics side of it. What's your perspective?
So when I came to Santa Cruz, I heard with the beautiful film all of the strengths. However, it was clear, even before you land on our beautiful campus, that it's known for genomics. It's rock solid there. And it's also known for social justice strengths and its humanities. And these are huge pillars. I mean, of course, I can go on and on about astronomy, but in tone of your question, these two, to me, were so important. And having crosstalk between colleagues, between STEM fields and humanities is actually quite rare. This is something that folks talk about a lot. Sometimes you have, I'll handle the technical components and we'll let our colleagues in the humanities handle the more difficult social questions. And here in Santa Cruz, I felt like I was able to develop a career which could blend and strengthen by having both of these pillars kind of brought together. And I feel like that's created an incredibly unique environment, not only for my research, but for every student that comes into my classroom, the way that it's blended into the teaching curriculum, as well as the training of undergraduates and opportunities to do kind of co-studies.
Yeah. I think one of the things that's unique to me is the way that our faculty give and being generous in their knowledge and in the way that they welcome people who want to learn more about another area. We've had pre-med students since probably near the founding of UC Santa Cruz, but I think there are a few alumni who ended up becoming medical doctors who are here with us today. But Grant, you direct this global and community health program. What's distinct about it and how is it different than a traditional pre-med track?
Right, so you're absolutely correct that we've always had pre-med students. I think about a quarter of the doctors in Santa Cruz County, in fact, are alumni of UCSC. But what we had was classes that students needed to take to get into medical school. We didn't ever have a program that really focused more holistically on ideas or challenges that people would need to confront as healthcare providers. So we did the minimum to get them into medical school, but we weren't really thinking proactively about how to best prepare them. I think all of you, are well acquainted with the social determinants of health after the pandemic, and that's a big component of the global and community health program, to talk to students very explicitly about the social determinants of health, about some of the psychosocial bases of medicine. Another important part of the global and community health program is to think beyond just pre-medical students, but about students that are interested in any aspect of healthcare in the United States today or in the world. So our program includes a Bachelor of Arts, and two different concentrations, and a Bachelor of Science program. So we're not only looking at pre-med students, we're looking at students who want to go into public health, who want to work in health policy, nursing programs, PA programs, and so on. So we're trying to think more broadly. We're developing courses that have more of an explicit health focus, and that involves working with a lot of wonderful colleagues all across campus.
Yes. Yeah, and it's really in the science division, but also in the social science division. Kind of one foot in each place, just as you described,
Yeah.
James. So this is a question I'd like each of you to answer from your own perspectives. Disease control, immunizations, mental health, access to care are only just a few of the health issues that we face here in California communities, but also in many communities around the globe. So what do each of you see as the most pressing issue?
Just one.
Just one.
That's right.
Well,
go ahead.
you can start, James.
Yeah,
I'm excited about this.
this is
Well, in
being
terms of-
recorded.
In terms of my work and my research, I think with the populations that I've worked with and spoken with, I think the question is really one of trust. How to engender trust in communities. And I think there's nothing like the pandemic to bring out issues of trust and distrust more than the pandemic itself. I was contacted by quite a few media outlets. You know, why are African Americans reticent to take the vaccine? What's the history behind this? And there's a history. But at the same time, we learned over time that there was distrust all across the population from different groups, right-wing groups, yoga teachers. There were all sorts of people who did not want to take the vaccine. So I think with type 2 diabetes in particular, we've hit a particular place where trust is being shifted in a way that cannot be ignored because the situation is so dire. Those of you who practice medicine or who are aware, we have issues with childhood obesity. The BMI charts have been doubled from 30 to 60. Something's happening, and it needs to be dealt with. California, I don't know where Gavin Newsom is with this now, but we decided in this state that we were going to manufacture our own insulin to take care of it, and I think to try to address the issue, and I think this is part of a larger issue of access. And I think that's something you mentioned. Access to medical care, the cost of medical care, the ways in which issues of distrust get built in or baked into the ways in which medical care has been commoditized in ways that many people can't afford. And there are people who are choosing between food and insulin or between other types of ways to maintain themselves. So I think that, yes, trust is the biggest issue that I've seen in my work.
What would you say, Grant?
Well, sort of adjacent to that, access to health care, I think, is the issue that most concerns me. So there are many different components of that. One is affordability, but also many communities in our state, people just there aren't enough providers out there. There aren't enough providers that are linguistically competent for communities in our state. And so a huge fraction of my time now is spent helping to develop programs that hopefully will address those issues. We're starting a post-baccalaureate program for pre-medical students that aims to identify promising students who come from these medically underserved communities and hopefully get them into medical school in the hopes that they'll actually go back to their home communities to practice medicine someday. And we'll expand beyond medical schools after that period.
Yeah. How about you, Karen?
Well, I think trust and I think healthcare are incredibly big topics. If I had to add to that, I would say it's shocking to me how quickly sequencing and genome technologies have been moving, and that technology has been driving us with these words like CRISPR and thinking about new ways to elevate healthcare, but we also know there's an imbalance there. There will always be certain individuals around the world who are going to have access to these first. And so part of the mission at Santa Cruz with my group is how do we, in our own way, use technology to address this imbalance. And so we have production centers around the world that we're trying to work with colleagues on, how to bring in some of these newer technologies to find, how can we use this is kind of topical with COVID. We're seeing these stations pop up around the world, but a lot of this really addresses this imbalance with technology and access to the therapeutics that are going to come out of this really exciting age. And this isn't something that I envision is going to happen 20 years down the line. It's happening really fast right now, the haves versus the have-nots. And any way we can get to understanding and having access to genomic information that can help guide precision health in the future is a fundamental human right, and how we can make that kind of a focal message. I think that we see this now popping up through all kinds of global communities and policymakers, that this is going to be something we're going to see more of in the future too.
Well, maybe you can continue with the next question, Karen, and that's to imagine what's possible for the future in human global community health and what are the greatest opportunities in the field, but also what do you think our role at UC Santa Cruz could be in helping to realize those opportunities?
I find this question to be really complicated, and I'm to answer, because I'm speaking from kind of the knowledge of living in the United States my entire life. And when I go into other communities and I start to think about how to enact kind of global positive change, it really has turned out to be not an action that I would say is directed from Santa Cruz, but kind of a co-production partnership, and really identifying key partners in other countries. And this may not be scientists who I feel as colleagues, but maybe even junior colleagues, people who are coming up in their career. And it's how do you empower this next generation? How do you begin to build these networks, these highly collaborative units to help grow at a global level, which sounds incredibly complex, but we're already starting to do it. We have a couple of pilot projects now at Santa Cruz where we're starting to think about how we can lean in with long-read sequencing technology projects, how we can start to teach how to build more complete genomes. This is more our team pairing with other young scholars and other communities to where we turn away, and hopefully they can continue to build genomes and serve benefit sharing models in their own community. But I do feel like it's been kind of a learning curve. It's going to be slow. There's always a policy component in working with other governments, but I feel as long as the North Star is really in that idea that working with true partners on the ground, breaking helicopter science, trying to be the model of how we're going to do genome in the future, is where I think Santa Cruz needs to find its brand.
So, collaborative at scale, right?
Yeah.
Grant, do you want to take the next one?
Sure.
Go ahead.
Just to add to that, I think what we really excel at is the interdisciplinary piece, where people in the Genome Institute are talking to people in the social sciences to really think through the implications and the difficult questions that come up with this new knowledge that comes along. And one thing that's always, really excited me about the Genome Institute is its commitment to open sharing of data and to not commoditize every little DNA sequence that comes out of the Genome Project. And that sounds all well and good, but then there are also major privacy concerns that come up. How much sharing is too much sharing? And I know there are people in the Genome Institute that are working hard on that and collaborating with people in the social sciences again.
Yeah. James, what do you think the opportunity is?
Well, one opportunity that we've been actively working on is strengthening connections with HBCUs. And the grad division at UC Santa Cruz has been tremendously supportive of that effort. So there's a UC Pathways initiative that seeks to bring promising HBCU students to the UCs for a summer, to avail them of what we have in the UC system, and to interest them in potentially coming to the UCs for graduate work. But there's that imbalance there of the PWI saying, come, our noblesse oblige is abundant and generous. But what we decided was we're going to try to balance that bidirectional avenue. So what we've been thinking and what we've been actively doing, Karen's been a part of this as well, is working with North Carolina A&T State University to create a program where we not only have students from and Katsu come to Santa Cruz to work in Karen's lab and other labs and to work with the excellent researchers and students that we have at UCSC, but also send students from UCSC to North Carolina A&T State University to work in Dr. Joseph Graves' lab. Dr. Graves is a UC graduate. He knows the UC system intimately. And it's a win-win situation for all of us, because what it does is two things. It brings students from HBCUs to an entirely different environment, an entirely different learning space where they can see the type of work that we're doing at UC and broaden their research horizons in that particular respect. But what it also does is it brings students from UC Santa Cruz of whatever background to an HBCU that is renowned for turning out biomolecular engineering graduates. It's the Xavier University of Biomolecular Engineering, and they can see that science is also being done, excellent science is being done by African descent people, that actually we do belong in the lab, that actually we can create excellent science. And for students who have participated in Dr. Graves' program, they found that to be a pedagogical goldmine. And we want to create an avenue where we get to develop stronger ties between UC Santa Cruz and North Carolina A&T State University. This is something that we've been working on for the last 2 or 3 years. Tremendous support from Grad Division, and it's something that we would like to get going in the next year or so. So yes, that's something that we're doing
So it's
here at UC Santa Cruz.
the kind of true partnership that Karen
A true
was talking
partnership.
about.
I'll just add to that, actually. I haven't told you about this, but Morehouse University, which is an HBCU, their medical school is starting a family practice medical residency in Santa Cruz. And so we're going to bring in the medical residents to speak to our students. But we're also going to try and start because these medical residents will be serving a largely Hispanic population, we're going to try and start a program where we pair our Spanish-speaking undergraduates with the medical residents to help them bring their Spanish-speaking abilities up as well. So very much a reciprocal sort of relationship of the sort you were talking about.
Yes, and what good training for our undergraduates. That's beautiful. Right, so this is the last question. So I want you to all kind of circle back to where you started, the core of your work and really the core of this series, and tell us what inspires you in your work, in your research at UC Santa Cruz.
I'll start.
Yeah.
So I would have never guessed this when I came to Santa Cruz. I thought I was just going to be in the lab all the time working, but really sort of what keeps me going and brings me joy in my work is my ability to work with really outstanding young students, excited students, and to get to know them personally, to understand their strengths and weaknesses and what they need to succeed and to help them succeed. And what sustains me is a week like this week where I got a email from one student who just got into the advanced master's entry nursing program at Johns Hopkins University, and another student who struggled early on in Santa Cruz but got into medical school, and he just emailed me to say he'd been accepted into a pediatrics residency at Oakland Children's Hospital where he grew up. So, it's those moments that inspire me and keep me going.
It's a real impact that changes people's lives. Yeah. James?
I would agree, the students and the colleagues, but the students. Sometimes an African American student, I'll say at least 2 or 3 of them, have walked into my office hours and just sat there and looked at me. They had no questions. They just wanted to make sure that I had a pulse and that I was real. They call that hidden labor, extra work, all of that, the diversity tax, and so on. But I'm like, I can't let these people go. One of them is finishing his PhD in medical anthropology at Berkeley. He's doing work on schizophrenia among the African descent population in the United Kingdom. And it's those sorts of experiences, it's those moments that are just so generative and so inspiring. And you just never know where they're going to go, but they're embryonic in some really important ways that need to be nurtured, cared for, and respected. And that's one thing that I am really appreciative of.
Well, and we appreciate you, James. Karen.
I love that Santa Cruz has this kind of gnarly position right next to a lot of tech. And so I constantly feel like I'm blessed by having this access to knowing the most interesting, cool sequencing genomic tech, and I get to go to all these great conferences. But I'm always kind of grounded by a lot of the touch points that it has with society. And I feel like there's very few universities that I've been able to create a career which has in my classes, in my lab, in the activities that I do, it really recognizes that this is the new future for genomics. And I feel like every student that I am lucky enough to have office hours with, it feels like that's transformative for them as well. Because it's so easy to just be like, I'm going over the hill and I'm going to get a job in biotech. And it's just amazing once you start to think about all of the context of social labels, social determinants, how it's going to affect public health. And I feel like this dimensionality that's on campus is special. And I feel like it's shaped my career, it's shaped the students in my lab, and it's inspired me as faculty at Santa Cruz to really recognize that this is not something you find at other universities. And it's really, I feel very lucky to be part of it.
Yeah, me too. Well, thank you all so much. It's just been delightful to hear from you and inspiring, for sure. So we're going to move now into the reception phase, and so I hope that you will continue this discussion among yourselves and talk about what inspired you this evening. And please say hello to tonight's panelists, and let's get to know each other a little better. So I'll welcome John back to the microphone.
Thank you so much, Cindy. Let's give another round of applause for our speakers tonight. And I'll reiterate, I spend a lot of my time on Zoom. They're really here. So you can go talk to them and they'll answer all your questions. So thanks again for joining us. There's these great little things over here. I hope you take some pictures and send them to your friends. We brought a giant banana slug for you, just all the way from Santa Cruz. So make sure you go do that. Have some dessert, hang out with us, chat with our panelists, and we'll see you next time. Have a good night.